Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm going to show you some interesting tree-formed and possibly spiraled conifers at a nursery called Panther Creek, which is a little southeast of Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a wholesale nursery. It's not open to the public, but a lot of their plants make it into landscapes all over the Raleigh-Durham area. Lots of landscapers come, and then, of course, they ship all over the place, but to garden centers, and very, very interesting list of plants here. It's a nursery that every time I see them at a trade show, they always have something in their booth I've never seen before, and I love that. About this place is that they'll experiment with new things and actually get very creative with some of our existing plants that have been around for a long time by tree farming them, or some interesting thing they're doing with them. A lot of it's in slightly larger containers, which a nursery like this that does most of their sales are going to be to landscapers will typically have bigger than 3-gallon material. It'll be mostly 7s and 15s, and in this case 25-gallon containers, and even bigger for that to meet that kind of business where somebody wants a little bit of instant gratification on a landscape job. This juniper next to me, this is a Juniper virginiana, which we typically call Eastern red cedar because we, call anything a cedar to get more money for the lumber, I guess. But this particular variety is called Brody, and it's really super soft to the touch. Normally it would just grow as just an upright, narrow habit, but this one's obviously been spiraled. A lot of work and time and effort has gone into this, and they're cookie cutters stamped out behind me. But this is a great named cultivar of a great native plant, and it's been turned into a piece of artwork here. So let's take a look at some other things. A couple of fun ones here. This is a thuja called Mr. Bowling Ball, and typically when I see this plant, it's in a little 3-gallon container is a perfect little round ball, and that's how it grows in the landscape. Really kind of almost an art piece, and it can just be kept like this. The caliper on this is amazing. This is actually this plant's got a little age to it, so a lot of effort and time has gone into this. This, I'm sure, at a retail location is not going to be an inexpensive piece, but I always say that about gardening, and I say this a lot of times in consultations, is I don't mind spending money on something like this because this is going to be like a centerpiece of the bed. Everything else I do, I can do from cuttings on my own, or from seed, or from divisions, or from a neighbor, or I'll do all that stuff around it to save money so that I can spend a few dollars on something that's interesting like this. I probably need a couple more little tree forms in the garden. Here's another one that's the same thing's been done. This is another thuja called whipcord. Always an interesting one to me. We have one of these at the house, but it was in a little quart pot, and so it's hasn't been staked up like this. It hasn't been tree formed like this, and so it doesn't. I love this one because there's hair hanging down from the top of it. It almost looks like a wig or something on top of a stick. Really interesting plant, and again. This one's not very common, but it's not uncommon. This whipcord thuja, it's just in this this particular growth habit, so it really accentuates the growth habit. Super, super interesting. The next 3 junipers I'm going to show you are actually considered ground cover junipers, and here they are in a tree form. This one's called Dobbs Frosted. Great, just a really great plant that has the new growth on it. Tends to be yellow. That's why it's called frosted. So you get this blue-green coloration down in the middle of it, and then the new growth, including the stems, are yellow, and it does look like it's just got a frosting on the outside of it. One of my all-time favorite junipers, ground cover junipers period, is Blue Star, and here's some Blue Star tree forms. Great plant. All these junipers are going to want to be on the in well-drained soil conditions, but not hard to grow at all. So there's a Blue Star, which has that kind of all blue coloration. This one has more of a blue coloration on the old growth and yellow on the new growth. Here's another spot with some Blue Stars, and next to it is one called Gold Lace. This is a juniper I grew for years. It's one of the best It's one of the best junipers for great gold color. Again, typically grown as a ground cover. You would grow this on a slope or a bank or something like that. But here it is in a tree form. The interesting thing about growing one of these ground cover junipers as a tree form is it's not going to continue to fight you and try to go up. You know, a lot of things are going to get out of, you know, a lot of tree forms are going to be higher maintenance than this. Because of the growth habit of this, it's going to grow like this anyway. So it's never going to try to fight you coming up. You'll just kind of lift the skirt on it occasionally as it weeps down too far. That's it. That would be all the maintenance you'd have to do on this. Here's a pom-pom juniper. This is a San Jose juniper that's been turned into pom-poms. It was staked up, and then all the branching on the side of it had been turned into little round balls. But this is another one of those ground cover junipers that has been turned into something interesting. This one's always been used for this. The San Jose juniper lends itself to bonsai, which is basically what this is. This will be an outdoor living, you know, an outdoor piece in your garden that looks like it's been bonsai'd, because that's exactly what it's been done to it. The maintenance on it is really not a whole lot. You just have to reform each of these individual balls occasionally, just with a little bit of pruning on them. But what a great form. They have lots of these types of pom-poms. Right beside the San Jose's are some sea green junipers turned into pom-poms. This one in the landscape I've seen as tall as, you know, 6 feet in height. So, you know, it's still a lot of times used as a ground cover juniper, but it can get some height on it over time. I would say it gets, you know, maintainable between 4 and 6 feet, something like that. But, you know, kind of a really indestructible habit. Let me go around these trees to here, get my shadow out of that. But that's another one you can see. Just beautiful. I mean, it's such an interesting shape and habit. You're not going to get two of these alike. You know, that's one of the things about these types of plants, which is, you know, something I like. They look great with these Japanese maples that have lost their leaves over here, these coral bark maples. You know, what an interesting winter look that is, to have that really dark, rich green pom-pom juniper with that pink stem on that Japanese maple in the wintertime. This one's really awesome to me. This is Pinus densiflora, called Burke's Red Variegated. And it has this incredible variegation in the needles on every single branch. This one's a fairly rapid grower if it likes the space it's in. This one can get 20 feet in height ultimately. It's incredibly showy in a winter garden. And again, another one, you know, this is the reason I came down to Panther Creek to buy things for my when I had a landscape company. Is just always find something that's just super interesting here. Here's 3 more interesting conifers. This is another ground cover juniper called mint julep that's been turned into pom-poms, and this one's in a 25-gallon container. It's got some age on it. I imagine this one's not inexpensive, but the amount of work that's gone into this is just incredible. Mint julep is soft to the touch. You know, a lot of our junipers can bite us, but this one's actually, if you've got to do a little bit of ongoing work with these. You know, pruning them occasionally. It's not much to maintain them, but the work you do have to do with them, this won't bite you while you're working with it. This is a Japanese black pine called Thunderhead. This one grows as, you know, a big shrub. It could be bonsai'd. It could be worked with the same as some of these other junipers and things you're looking at. But it kind of does it on its own without you know, any need for trying to shape it. It will shape itself interestingly regardless. This one can get maybe 8-10 feet tall, 6-8 feet wide, something like that. Slow growing, so it's not in any hurry to do that, but really an incredibly interesting pine, Japanese black pine. And then this is Hollywood juniper, which has always been one of my absolute favorite upright screening junipers, because Hollywood, if you had 10 of them planted in a row, they'd all look different. They all ultimately have the same upright, narrow growth habit, but it's a branch going over here and a branch going over here, and they all have character, which is something that a lot of our screening plants that look like little soldiers don't have. It makes a great screening plant, but without looking necessarily like they're all clones of one another. And this one's been turned into a pom-pom, which is, you know, amazing. And I think there's 4, 7 of them, something like that out here. And they're virtually identical from one another. They're, whoever did this did a really good job on them. And then where the initial work was done for this. But again, this is another one that's, you know, Hollywood's another one that's soft to the touch. So as you have to go and, you know, do a little bit of pruning to keep these little balls in shape, won't bite you. Here's another Pinus thunbergii, or Japanese black pine. I showed you the thunderhead one over there, which has more of that compact habit. Here's the regular Pinus thunbergii that's been pom-pommed. So each of these branches has just been manipulated a bit and then pruned into little pom-poms. But beautiful, beautiful plant. This one kind of, you know, this is another one of those conifers that, you know, in the landscape, just left to its own growth habit, kind of has an interesting, you know, kind of has this kind of interesting habit regardless of whether or not it's been worked on or, you know, or bonsai'd in any way, shape, or form. They kind of look like natural bonsais in the landscape, but these are absolutely beautiful. This is a very common ground cover juniper called Procumbens nana. This one is frequently worked with in bonsai. It's another one of those kind of naturally bonsais itself. If you see an old Procumbens nana juniper that's been in the ground for a long time, it'll get, the part where it gets old and woody will look, you know, it kind of contorts itself in the landscape and offers really just an interesting plant, regardless of doing anything to it at all as it ages. This one here obviously has been tree formed and then pom-pommed, so it was, you know, limbed and staked up over time, and then each of these branches were then turned into pom-poms, and it has, you know, look at this thing. This is a really low maintenance plant. But a lot of these plants that I've shown you here are actually good ornamental plants. They're not like super incredibly tricky plants, and then you're going to spend so much money on them. I mean, a Procumbens nana juniper is a very common plant, very drought tolerant, very heat tolerant, resistant to, you know, a lot of issues, you know, we would have in the southeast with humidity and that kind of thing. Not a problem with this plant, and it's just been turned into something super interesting. I'm going to come back here and do another video on leafy evergreens that have been topiaried or poodled in some way, as well as these conifers. This is, it's amazing. The nurserymen have never found a plant they wouldn't at least try to tree form, find a weeping form, a variegated form, you know, contort in some way, or, you know, literally make it look like a poodle, which is kind of funny. But I'll finish on this one. This is one we actually have in our garden at the house. This is a Cedrus atlantica, which is one of the actual cedar species. And this one's called Glauca pendula. A lot of times you'll see this one as a straight single trunk and then weeping branches coming off the side of it. These have been contorted, similar to the way I did the Japanese maple at my house. And so the main trunk is contorted, and then you have the weeping blue foliage or needles on these stems coming down to the ground from there. And so it's really given this one a lot of character. I don't know how well this will show up on the camera because this light blue color is not easy to see. Really beautiful plant. And again, you can see this one in a lot of different forms. A lot of people will keep these in containers. You can stunt them, keep them smaller. It's not in a big hurry to grow, but one of my absolute favorite conifers, because it can be 100 different things. You'll never see 2 of these that are the same in any landscape or in any nursery. So thank you guys for watching, and again, thanks to Panther Creek for letting me come out and shoot and drag the camera around this incredible place. There's just a ton of things to shoot here, and if you follow the Garden Plants with Jim Putnam channel, a lot of these individual plants, there'll be longer videos on that channel. Thanks for watching.